Now, detonate the reality bomb!
I will build a great, great wall.
Some alien race to come down and threaten us.
Is the singularity near?
The truth is out there.
The military-industrial complex.
The 7 mountains of the influencers of culture.
To be as gods, you know.
Change has come to America.
Catapult of propaganda.
From a secure location on top of the ridge in the heart of the beautiful Missouri Ozarks, this is A View from the Bunker. Now, here's Derek Gilbert.
All you have to do is turn on your television to see that Prince of the Power of the Air, the description that is given to Satan in the Bible, actually has a literal application in modern broadcast history. Welcome to A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. Joining me tonight as we do our second program in a row devoted to trying to fulfill a mission to impact the culture around us by using entertainment as a means to deliver truth. He is he's had a varied career. He's been a professional musician. He is a writer, an actor, a director, a very lengthy resume at IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. But now he is turning his attention to producing content, producing entertainment that will uplift and educate and encourage the body of Christ. You can find him online at lastevangelist.com, davidheavener.tv, and we welcome to the program for the first time the aforementioned David Heavener. David, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, Derek. It is so good to be with you, and thanks for that interview. I wish I would have recorded it myself. I'd use it on all my shows introduction.
You're very gracious, and you've been kind enough to bring me onto your video program a couple of times, so it's long past due to bring you on this program here. Now, last week we talked with a young fellow who's put together a team that's working on developing a video game, graphic novel franchise, but they're doing it on a shoestring and trying to crowdfund it. In the same way, you're working toward crowdfunding what is an amazing concept. The Last Evangelist television series described the slug line here on the website where CSI meets Revelation. This is similar to something Sharon and I tried creating some years ago with a series of novels that we were describing as Christian X-Files. Christian publishing really didn't have a niche that they could fit us into. What kind of reaction are you getting from your colleagues in Hollywood when it comes to talking with them about looking for backers or any kind of support that you can get for The Last Evangelist?
Well, what's interesting, Derek, is I'm not getting hardly any pushback at all. As a matter of fact, my sources in Hollywood many times have been waving checks in front of my nose and say, hey, I'd love to have this. I'd love to get involved and I'd love to be part of it. And I've turned it, I've said no. It's been very surprising because God told me, says, look, David, go to my people. Just go to my people. They will hear my voice. And that's what you need to do. And so I have gotten actually good response. Of course, see, Derek, they don't look at it like we do. Okay. They're not looking at it through spiritual eyes. They're looking at it as, I'm toting a gun. Of course, they don't look at the Bible because on the other hand, I have a Bible.
And they're wondering why you didn't spell Revelation with an S on the end. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so they're looking at it like it's another one of my, 90s action type, things. And you know what? That's okay. That's all right. Because when it comes out, we'll see if God places it in their heart to, I guess, as a parable, But right now they're not seeing it. They're just seeing it for an action film. And so they haven't really shunned me. Now I'm in casting right now, and something very interesting is happening. I'll have actors that love the concept from the outside. They'll look at it, and I've had probably a third of the actors actually shy away from me once they read the script. And about 50% of that third that I've had a chance to talk to, they go, look, I'm afraid if I do it, it may put me in a certain bag I don't want to be in. The other 50% says, look, I'm Jewish. I'm a Muslim. I'm a Hindu. I don't agree with what's going on. So that's interesting. Not to say that the other 2/3 aren't Muslims and aren't Jews. They are, but it just, I'm getting a little pushback on the actor side of it.
The support, the financial support from Hollywood, seems to me that is a double-edged sword. Is that why you're turning away from it?
Yeah, it's too easy. It's kind of like, I've been in this business 30 years and God has allowed me to raise millions of dollars, from the 50 movies I've done. And it's just too easy to take their money because once you take their money, you're pretty much married to them. And though they don't say it, but they know that they can pull your string at any time like a puppet. You have to dance ultimately. And I just feel like I know this project is not in that category. It's in God's hands and it'll be God's way. And I believe it's going to be God's money.
So if you had to do an elevator pitch for the audience listening, how would you describe The Last Evangelist? I mean, CSI meets Revelation sounds like an interesting concept. How does this play out on the screen?
Yeah, so 6 episodes. And I play a cop, John Rhodes, whose job is it to bust underground churches. The churches are illegal during this time. And this, by the way, takes place in America. And I bust this one underground Bible study, and something goes wrong. I won't give the story away, but it causes me to start searching myself. And finally, I start searching for God. God finds me one night in my apartment and reveals himself to me. And when he does, I end up resurrecting with a Bible in one hand, a gun in the other, and setting out for the Antichrist, through the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Antichrist, the mark of the beast, the cashless society, FEMA camps, everything that I believe is going to happen is actually playing out as we speak anyway.
And this is the interesting thing is the conversation we had last week with David Villanueva. It sounds like the theme that the themes that you're working into The Last Evangelist are exactly the kind of things that Sharon and I and our colleagues at SkyWatchTV, Tom Horn, Josh Peck, and other friends around us have been researching, writing, and talking about for quite some time. I mean, we're seeing things happening around us that most people are just not seeing if they're not aware of end times Bible prophecy and how news is how our political changes, how our social changes are pushing us in this direction. Interesting how there are people who are beginning to see these themes as fodder for compelling entertainment, but in entertainment that can also educate and get people asking, hey, maybe there's something to this. I wonder where can I find out more?
Yeah, it's interesting you would say that because I've never seen the movie The Matrix. I've never watched it. I'm just not into fantasy. But that's where the red pill was birthed,
right? This
red pill movement. And for those of you that don't know, which I'm sure you do, if you listen to Derek, but Keanu Reeves is offered a red pill or a blue pill. If he takes the red pill, it opens his eyes to the truth and he can pierce the matrix of what's really going on. Okay, so why am I bringing this up? Because I believe the enemy is using these kind of films, the fantasy films in Hollywood, to actually reveal the truth to people, but he's revealing it in a way that's fantasy for them to go, okay, I see it. I could believe it, but I'm living in a fantasy world. In other words, there's no connection to reality. They're seeing the truth, but it never gets plugged into the wall. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's by design, Derek, by design. This is the Hollywood scheme, as I call it, with these fantasy films. It's all by design of the enemy. And so, anyway, I kind of got off track what we were talking about. And that's another reason I can't get back into Hollywood with their agenda, because not only do they want to control it if they invest money, but I know what their ultimate agenda is. Their ultimate agenda is to hate product like this when they find out that it's really,
Mm-hmm. It is interesting that there are bits of truth that come out there. This is something Sharon and I take a look at. For example, one of the programs that we had talked about on Sci Friday, which is one of the video programs we produce for SkyWatchTV, was a Netflix release about 2 years ago called Altered Carbon, because it deals with the ultimate consequences, the logical consequences of radical life extension. What happens if death can be overcome, but only by the wealthy, because they're the only ones who can afford it? Well, you see what rapidly becomes a literal hell on earth. Now, they're not approaching it from a Christian perspective, and yet there's some truth in there that can be drawn out. It would be really intriguing to see something like that explored from a Christian perspective. But do I understand correctly that you're thinking that this is being put out there in a secular format for a specific agenda that is not sympathetic toward the gospel of Jesus Christ?
Oh, absolutely. It's to numb people and dumb them down. I don't know if you saw any of my presentation at this Los Angeles when we did the conference there, but I talk about the Hollywood mind control. And this is part of their agenda, is they're numbing people. You see, it's kind of like gaslighting. You've heard the term gaslighting.
Oh, sure, yeah. Wonderful film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the actual term, which I think you can probably find in the dictionary, actually came from the film. In other words, the Hollywood joke is that Hollywood is looking at people going, I think since we're gaslighting people, let's just make a movie called Gaslight. And let's turn it into an actual term. I mean, it's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. So what they're doing, and it's very meticulous, it's very divisive, it's very clever. If I don't like that word clever, but clever as a snake. How they're doing it to young people, they're slowly sucking them into this world of fantasy, which reveals the truth, but never brings them to an understanding. Okay, so it's gaslighting. It's they're doing something right in front of your face, and they're telling you it's not actually really happening. Okay, and this is the scheme of the enemy, and this is why with Last Evangelist, it's not fantasy. I struggle with this film. My kids have seen me make a lot of films, and they go, Dad, why are you struggling? I said, I can't do this like I do my other films. It's got to be real. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be something that I don't even know what it is right now, so it has to have its own matrix, if that makes sense.
So how do you get to the point where after the list of films that you've been involved with, both as an actor, writer, director, you talked about your 90s action films, and you've got quite a list of them with titles like L.A. Goddess, Kick of Death, things of that nature. Yeah. At what point in your career did you say, I've developed some skills in being involved with the production of films like this. I can take this and do something. I can do something constructive with it. What was it that said, I need to take what I've learned now and apply it in a different way?
It's funny. That never happened. Mine is a different story. When I finally came to the Lord, I've been a Christian for 30 years. Okay. But I was a brain dead Christian. I really have only been enlightened for 7 years. Okay. I crashed, I burned. I believe I physically died. And when I came back up, I came as with integrity, where my church-going David Heavener married my movie-making David Heavener, and the two became one, and they couldn't be separated. Well, the problem with this, being in this condition of integrity and enlightenment, is you start seeking truth at this point, and you won't settle for anything less. So, as a Christian, I said, okay, now I'm all in, Lord, but I need to know, what's the truth? I go into a church, I know that ain't it. At least 75% of it's not. And so I said, okay, well, I'll just become a pastor. And so I became a pastor and started a church. And when I say I said I'll become a pastor, I feel like God was leading me.
Mm-hmm.
So I started this church like anybody else would do. I didn't do any films. I just kind of got out of it. I said, no, and I built it up to about 100 people. And God said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm building my church. He goes, well, that's the problem. You're building your church. You're not building mine. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, well, you got to start speaking the truth. You're doing this candy-coated, Christian sermon stuff. And so next week, I got up in front of the congregation. I said, I have some news for you. God's given to me. I'm going to relate that there's a lot of people in this world. Most people are going to hell. And they said, amen, and they clapped. And I said, and a lot of the people in this room are part of most of those people that are going to hell. And you could have heard a pin drop. And I said, but you know what? Let's talk about repentance. And let's talk about, and so I started preaching Matthew 24. I started preaching out the book of Revelation. I didn't even know what I was doing because I didn't know guys like you. I didn't know your world that that you're in. But no, I didn't know it existed.
Fringe Christianity, yeah.
Fringe Christianity, right. So I went, I'm the only guy that could take a congregation of 100 and dwindle it down to 7 people in 3 months. But I remember my last service that I held with 7 people. I said, God's given me a vision. I said, and here's the vision is I'm going to go back to my filmmaking and bring the gospel through my filmmaking. I said, I don't know how it's going to happen. And so about 2 weeks later in my bedroom, waking up 3 a.m, God woke me up over a period of several days and I wrote Last Evangelist. Okay. Didn't know what to do with it. Didn't know what to think of it. I mean, I'm talking things like Cashless Society, Mark of the Beast, the FEMA camps. I mean, just and little things, Derek, that I would kind of poke around on YouTube. But I wasn't like one of these people that would watch your channel and my channel. I wasn't like that. I was just kind of like from a distance looking at it going, can this be real?
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it. Can it really be true? And so I got invited to an event just to walk around and meet a few people. About 2.5 years ago, it was called Hear the Watchman,
mm-hmm.
and it was in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I was invited by someone that just bought a ticket and said, David, come meet me here for coffee. Let's walk around. Let's talk a little bit. I wasn't even coming to see the Watchman. I didn't know what it was. I was coming to see this person. And so I walk in this room and I see these people, these books and all this crazy stuff going on, these ideas about Nephilim and, aliens and demons and, all this kind of stuff. And there was this guy standing by the table and I said, hey, how are you? He goes, good. I said, what's your name? He goes, Paul Begley. I said, hey, Paul, nice meeting you. I said, what do you do? And he explained what he did. And he asked me, he says, what do you do? And I said, well, I make movies. And I shared with him. And he said, we got to get together. And I said, I wrote this script, Last Evangelist. He says, we got to get together. So about a week later, he drove to Louisville from Indianapolis. I sat and read the script to him. I said, look, I'm going to read this to you. And you tell me that I just need to not do anything with it, and I'll be fine. I'll be okay with that, seriously. Because I knew he knew a lot about this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and says, you've got to make this. So that was 2 years ago, Derek. And then he mentioned a Jeannie. I didn't know Jeannie. And Jeannie called me and offered me a table at Hear the Watchman, Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And I just came and I go, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just sitting here with the rest of these crazy people now, trying to figure out what's. So I had a little sheet, there's a little sheet for people to sign up, I had a little website. Am I talking too much?
No, absolutely not. Because I think the one thing people, constantly will let me know is when I talk more than the guest. And I do have a tendency to do that. So no, absolutely not. Keep going.
Okay. Because I just because it's such a as I say this to you, I'm going, this has to be God. This can't be, it has to be the hand of God, So I'm sitting at the table. It's 2 years ago, and I have a little sheet because I asked Jeannie. I said, "What should I do?" She says, "Well, get them to sign your sheet so you can get their email." I go, "Okay," and get a little website. So I put up a little site. Now taking mine, I didn't do what you do. I knew nothing. I didn't even have a YouTube channel. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't do Facebook. I didn't do any of that stuff, right? And so this girl comes by and says, "I got to interview you." And I said, "Well, who are you?" And she said, "Lisa Haven."
Right.
And I said, "Okay." So we went off in a room. Now, I come from a filmmaking background, right? And so I'm used to big cameras and lights. And so we sit in this room, and I said, "Well, where is everybody?" She goes, "Well, we are everybody." And I said, and she puts up this little camera, right, on us. And she starts asking me these questions. And at that point, that's when it all started. So I gave the interview. I told her about the 3 systems that God gave me, which is Hollywood system, which is the Christian film system, and which is God's system. I'm neither going Hollywood. I'm not going Christian film because that's also corrupt. I'm going straight down the middle, God's system. So when she released the video, all of a sudden my little YouTube channel went from, 10 people to, 3,000 or 4,000 people,
mm-hmm.
right? And then I got calls from other people saying, "Could I interview on you this? Can I do this?" And I said, yeah. So I started talking. And so about a year ago, I went to a place I covered the story on the Bible that leaks oil. And I released it, and they went viral. It's up to, I think, about 3 million views now. And then all of a sudden, my channel jumped from 3,000 to, I think it's at 85,000 right now. But through all that, I got a call from guys like Russ Dizdar. Russ said, "Hey, I'd like for you to meet with you." And he invited me up to stay with him. I did tons of interviews with him. And the more he spoke about what his mission was, the more God opened doors up and started enlightening me. And I went with him on several trips to go after these pedophiles and just, Derek, like yourself, just I'm honored to know people like you and just all these great people I've interviewed the past 2 years. And if you've seen my channel, you've seen I've interviewed, quite a few.
Right.
Which is supernatural because I didn't know any of them, Well,
but this is exactly how Sharon and I got into all of this. I mean, I come out from an entertainment background in terms of radio broadcasting. I mean, top 40 radio broadcaster was what I started in. Got out of it mainly because I didn't want to drag my then very young daughter from town to town to chase my radio career around. But after meeting and marrying Sharon and beginning to write, as I said, that fictional, that series of novels, Christian X-Files, we came to find out that God was actually getting us to write so that we'd start podcasting and getting me back into using the microphone. And that is how we wound up connecting with people like Tom Horn and Gary Stearman and Bob Ulrich at Prophecy Watchers and Russ Dizdar and, other people in this milieu. So that's kind of how I got led around through this. And as you dig deeper into it, you begin to see that the stuff that you assumed was just flat out conspiracy theory. And Sharon can tell you this. When we first met, I was not anywhere near the page that I'm on now. You begin to realize that reality is a lot stranger than you thought. Now, looking at your list of IMDb credits, you made a lot of films about a lot of exciting action type concepts that involved a lot of stuff that appeals to guys, fighting and explosions and whatnot. But over the last couple of years, after meeting people like Paul Begley and Russ Dizdar and the people that have gravitated around to hear the Watchmen, how have your eyes been open to real reality as opposed to the reality that Hollywood depicts?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's 3 parts to that. you said it. I spent 20-something years writing scripts that were fantasy. In other words, how far could I push the envelope to get people to want to watch this? Because it's all about selling tickets. In my world, it was about selling DVDs and so forth. And so that's me writing fantasy, writing, fiction, things that don't exist, but, maybe they could, right? And then you have the other part, which is the Christian aspect of it. Now, it's our faith, your faith, my faith, our faith in God, and what we've been taught through Christianity, through the church system, right? And now you got the fringe, and I'm using your words, that description. You, Russ Dizdar, Paul Begley, these guys, now me. Thank you very much. You sucked me into it. And so now you have us. Okay, but here's the deal. There's not much difference between the fantasy I used to write and what really exists in our world right now, on this fringe. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And this is tracking with something that happened to me. I wrote a novel back in 2005, 2006 as part of this series that Sharon and I were working on that involved a series of seemingly unconnected yet simultaneous terror attacks across the United States as part of a plan to destabilize the government and bring on chaos that could then be manipulated by a nefarious group who it turns out is led by, a member of a supernatural council, an infernal council, if you will. The interesting thing is, as I was editing it, is when we became aware of Russ Dizdar. I was like, wait a minute. As I read what Russ was talking about and got to meet him and interview him, I realized I had written his Black Awakening concept into the novel without knowing anything about it before I started. So yeah, it was very similar. It was like jaw-dropping.
Right. So it's to the point now we're such on the fringe that there's not much difference between the fringe and what I was writing as fantasy back, in my career. I mean, I still have my career, but back when I was, doing it full time, the only difference is, and Hollywood will look at me and they'll look at you and they go, yeah, David, I believe in cashless society. I believe in FEMA camps. I believe even in the mark of the beast to a certain extent, but they don't feel like it's going to affect them. See, there's a disconnect. And so my prayer is going to be that however I shoot this is in a way that they're going to look and go, wait a minute, hang on. This could actually this could happen to me, and so, and it's not going to happen through big Hollywood, cameras and budgets and stuff. God clearly showed me that. I'm not sure how it's going to happen. I'm still looking at my approach to it right now. I have about 2 months before I start rolling the camera full time. It just can't be the Matrix. Not that I have the budget for that, but if I try to make it look like that, I think what they're going to look at and go, he's making another fantasy, or it's a poor attempt at the Matrix, low budget Matrix, So it's got to be something that's just so gritty and so real and so, what they can relate to.
There are some very creative films that have taken advantage of that low budget, worked within the low budget and done it in such a creative way that you don't realize that it's being done on a shoestring. Blair Witch Project comes to mind. There are other probably better examples out there for the genre that we're talking about here. How do you make that transition from going from a certain formula that works, and then now suddenly saying, okay, now I've got to do something completely different, and I've got to do it without the backing of these guys in Hollywood who would certainly want to tell me certain things that I would not be allowed to do. How do you work within those constraints and then come up with something that's still compelling and educational at the same time?
Right. Well, it's interesting you mentioned Blair Witch Project. The DP on that was my DP until he passed away. Neil Fredericks was the DP on that, and he was the camera guy. And he was getting ready to shoot my next film, and he went off to Florida and tied himself to an airplane, did aerial shots, and the airplane went down in the water, and he drowned.
Oh, no.
And yeah, it's a very terrible situation. But before that happened, I sat and had long conversations with him about Blair Witch. And I said, Neil, did you have any idea what you were making when you were making it? In other words, that was a phenomenon. That wasn't normal. And he looked at me and he said, David, I had no clue what I was doing. He said, none of us did. He said, we didn't know. We didn't have any idea it would be what it is. He goes, we were just, something was moving us, So the answer is, I don't have an answer right now. I have an idea. And as it gets closer and closer, it'll formulate into something. I can tell you, I'm not going to use a huge crew. I'm not going to, do it the way I used to do it, because what happens is it bogs you down, and this thing cannot be bogged down. There's the more people you bring on the set, the more potential for problems. So I'm going to keep it kind of slim, How
about distribution? That's something that I know Hollywood filmmakers, Christian filmmakers right now are trying to find the best model to get out of the normal channels so that they can bring films to viewers without having to be restricted by what Hollywood wants to allow into the channels, as far as theaters are concerned anyway. What kind of distribution model are you looking at to bring The Last Evangelist and other future projects to viewers?
Yeah, I was a distributor for 20 years. That's one of the reasons I was a successful filmmaker, because I knew how to sell the film. I had the avenue. Here's the problem. I can't go to Netflix because they fund child pornography, and most of 2/3 of the platforms out there are really run by the Antichrist. Even some of the Christian platforms. I won't mention names, but so what I've done is formed a Roku, Amazon, Android, Apple channel called David Heavener TV. It'll go there for sure. I've got a new show that I just signed a deal on called David Heavener Investigates. You can find that at davidheavenerinvestigates.com. You might pull that up now just to look at it.
Yeah.
But that's a John Walsh, America's Most Wanted, meets end times signs and wonders Christianity. Is it real from Satan or God? And that's opened up television for me, Christian television world. So I feel like I'll get it syndicated through regular TV because of this other show I'm doing. And of course, I'll sell it international because that's I'm more known international than I am in the U.S. So I'll be able to get it out internationally, which is good. But that's about it. But God will open the doors as we go.
Yeah, I like some of the concepts here on the episodes for David Heavener Investigates. Why is this Bible leaking oil in Georgia? Is there satanic ritual abuse in your city? Will big tech bring the mark of the beast? These are things that will cross boundary lines because, especially when you deal with questions about prophecy or things that deal with the spirit realm or the supernatural realm that don't often get discussed in church or taught on by pastors. Right. These are things people are curious about, and that's why a lot of people are looking to the New Age movement or to extraterrestrials to try to find answers to these questions.
Well, you're right about that. And I had mentioned to Josh Peck, he kind of reminds me of when I started in the business of an indie filmmaker, where you just kind of have a lot of guts and you don't, it's like you're just kind of, and not that I'm comparing him with that, but my point is, when I see a younger guy like him, and he's into this world that we're in, this fringe, it reminds me of when I started in the indie film business, where you're just working for very little, with very little, but you're trying to pull miracles off with it, And I think what we're going to have to do, Derek, is we're going to have to stay away from this polished Hollywood-looking. Because what's happened is, and I hate to say it, but the religious system, the Christian apostate TV world has taken and they've tried to mimic the Hollywood scheme, if you will, and they've brought in Christian type programs and things like this. And people, they're not buying it. They're going, okay, well, it looks good, but it's just not real. I think it's going to take people like us to go, hey, here's my iPhone, here's my little camera. Now I'm going to shoot the truth. You want it or not?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess you'd call it down and dirty, rough and rocky, gritty, truth telling. And hey, here's this is what's interesting. So figure this one out. So over a course of 15 minutes with me and my 12-year-old son, we stop off in this place in Georgia with my iPhone, and I film this Bible leaking oil, right? It's just, I'm just going in to film it. I'm going, well, I don't know anything about this Bible. I'm just going to, I'm covering it. I'm whatever. Okay, so I release it, and, 8 months later, 2 million views, 2.5 million views, mm-hmm. right? And then from that spawns this TV show, David Hebner Investigates, and spawns, a lot of things. Well, check this out. If I could get 2.5 million views on Last Evangelist, or anybody in Hollywood get 2.5 million views on a show, you've got a hit show. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I shot that with an iPhone in 15 minutes. So, and I don't even remember editing. I think I was asleep when I was editing it. So when it comes to God doing what God needs to do, there is no formula anymore. All that kind of goes out the window, mm-hmm. And we just have to go with what God wants to do and totally trust what he's got going,
Isn't it interesting that the technology that's being used by, to use a term, the beast system, to break down the family. And this is something we talked about on SkyWatchTV, where kids are going to bed with a device connected to the internet, a window to the world every night. Parents are allowing their children to let strangers into their bedrooms who our parents would never have let past the front door in years gone by.
Yeah.
And yet we can take those tools, turn it around, and create compelling content that actually shows that generation the truth. Because let's face it, a lot of those kids are never going to pick up a Bible. Most of their parents have never picked up a Bible. But if you can show something compelling on video and tell a story with it that grips them and really draws them in, well, you got something.
Well, you do. And that's the other thing, too, is most kids will never go to a movie theater unless they're watching Avengers 7, or Matrix 21, or some huge fantasy. In other words, it's an event. But most of them, they're not going to go. The attendance is way down. In 10 years, it won't exist except for some, huge theaters where you can go in and, wash your car, wash your laundry, eat dinner, and go to the movie at the same time.
Right.
They're going to be watching stuff on an iPhone. And so my thought is, hey, you know what? Let's take that weapon and turn it the other way and use it on the enemy instead of the enemy using it on our kids. And so I went in the other day to the Apple store, and I looked at the iPhone 11, mm-hmm. And it blew me away. I put it up against, I use a red a lot when I shoot, and I put it up against the red, and the only difference is the depth of field. And of course, when you get meticulously close to something, you can always tell. But you know what? On an iPhone or an iPad, these kids watching Last Evangelist, they're not going to know the difference between a red camera, a Black Magic, or a, iPhone 11. Mm-hmm. So I'm going, wait a minute, hold it. So you got to kind of rethink things. Things have to be. You got to look. I think Soderbergh, the filmmaker,
right.
He's made his third movie now. I think he's shooting on the iPhone 11, and this is his third film. And this guy throws some decent change out at these movies. Decent money when he's shooting. There's something there. I'm going to explore it. I'm really looking at it hard. I actually did shoot Lisa Haven's part last Thursday. She's in it. She plays a doctor. and I did shoot her with a certain kind of technology I've never shot before. I don't want to reveal it right this second, but it turned out really awesome. And it was she's got a decent part, but it was a small enough part I could take a gamble, but it worked. It just blew me away after I saw it. I mean, it blew everybody away. They were shocked, So as time goes on, we're going to find this stuff. They just ordered a drone for me, and my young son operates it, and he says, "Dad," he goes, "I can shoot a third of this film with the drone." And so I looked at some test footage, and I'm going, "Who needs a crew anymore? I'll get my 12-year-old out here with the drone and let him film."
Well, that's. And certainly, filmmaking is not my background, but Sharon and I found that we were able to produce two reasonably competent, I wouldn't call them documentary films, but travelogues, basically, with iPads and iPhones in Israel last year or this year. So we're looking at, a little more of this technology, but I'm not sure about trying to travel into Israel with a drone. That might raise a question or two. But if you've got a drone, then suddenly you don't need the crane shot anymore. I mean, you essentially have a crane shot right there.
You do, and you don't need your crew. You don't need. There's a lot of things you don't need. You probably don't need permits. That's the other thing is if you get a couple of iPhone 11s, a drone, you basically can just walk into anywhere. You don't need locations. Just get your actors and go in there and shoot. And before they know what you're doing, you're done. I've never done that. Don't get me wrong, but I'm telling you it's doable is what I'm saying. I haven't done it, but I'm not going to tell you I won't do it. I'm telling you, I'm looking at it very seriously, Now,
as you've jumped into the deep end of the pool here, starting with that Knoxville conference that Mike and Jeannie put together, over the last couple of years, what's been the most surprising or eye-opening thing that you have learned since beginning to, network and research and become friends with this strange group of fringe Christians that we hang around with?
Yeah. Well, other than there's two things. Number one is what I wrote in Last Evangelist is not only going to happen for sure, but is happening now, which is shocking. Okay, just shocking. But number two, this is probably the most horrific in my eyes, is that because I made the oil video, which like I said, became pretty popular, I see, and this is no commentary or nothing to do with the oil from the Bible, but it's just in general. I'm seeing God's signs and wonders happening, but people aren't seeing God's signs and wonders the way that I believe God wants them to see. However, the devil has got his signs and wonders, and I'm seeing a lot of people gravitate toward that. It's strange. I understand it because Scripture talks about it, but I don't understand how the workings of it is. How can someone who says they're a Christian look at what I would consider a miracle and not see it or not be attracted to it, but yet this other thing that's conjured up by the enemy is a sign wonder, and they're attracted to that. I'm saying that because of the episodes I've shot in David Heavener Investigates, which I can't go into, but that's my biggest shocker right there, Derek, is the signs and wonders, why people are gravitating toward the lying signs and wonders instead of the God signs and wonders.
That's a really good point. Sometimes the signs and wonders that God sends to us are not what we're expecting.
Right.
And we're expecting the heavens to open and the beam of light to come down and the heavenly choir to go, whoa! And sometimes it's a little more subtle than that, that the people who, there's a reason the Bible tells us to be aware, because we may be entertaining angels without realizing it. I think that also the warning in Scripture that the lying signs and wonders would draw away many, and that even the elect would be deceived if that would be possible as we head into these end times. So,
well, yeah, I mean, the Lion Signs and Wonders, I would equate it to the Hollywood production of, a fantasy film, right?
Right.
I mean, people are going to get titillated. They're going to get their ears tickled. They're going for a high, sensationalism. That's the devil's signs and wonders. And I'm seeing that, and people are buying it. They're buying it, just completely.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I'm seeing God's signs and wonders, like we talked about, and they're not miraculous. They are miraculous, but they're not necessarily sensationalism,
Right.
And people, they call us lunatics, I mean, they don't call me that, but I know they look at me sometimes and say, you're a lunatic.
Yeah.
You're nuts, Well, I consider these God's signs and wonders,
Yeah, absolutely agree. So the video work for The Last Evangelist begins in a couple of months. What's the timeline for that you hope to hit as far as being able to bring that to a screen?
Yeah, and we say to a screen.
Or to our screens, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to start in January what we call principal photography. I've been shooting the past 2 months B-roll, which is exteriors, which is smaller parts like Lisa Haven, where they're isolated, meaning they don't necessarily tie into another character or, they don't come back, so there's no reoccurring. So I could shoot it now, put it in a can for 6 months and still be okay and pull it back out. So I probably shot an eighth of the film like that. I'll start principal photography the end of January, and then we'll start shooting through probably March, April. And and so we're doing a crowdfunding campaign to raise the rest of the money on it. And so that's our plan right now.
Where would people find that so they can support what you're trying to do?
Well, there's two ways. They can go to Indiegogo and sign up. They don't need to spend any money. It's just a pre-launch. Just put their email in, Indiegogo.com. Or they can go to lastevangelist.com and sign the newsletter. If they want to buy a T-shirt, buy a hat, whatever, or donate, the money will go straight to the TV series. It's all the same. But in any case, they can do that. And Indiegogo will probably launch in 2 or 3 weeks as far as the campaign, but at least we'll have the email. We can contact everybody.
Okay. And you've got a YouTube channel, also channels for Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Android TV.
Right, exactly. And I have a live show every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I interview different people. I'll have to get you and Sharon on sometime. But we're a year old. We just celebrated our birthday last week, and I've interviewed so many great people, some of the top-notch people in our fringe industry, and God's really blessed that. And so we have, 5,000-6,000 people that show up, and so that's a blessing, because it's really all about spreading the gospel. It's not about, you writing a book or me making a movie, or we do that just as a channel to get the truth out to people.
Amen. Amen. DavidHeavener.tv, LastEvangelist.com. I'll put links in the show notes at VFTB.net or wherever you're watching or listening, as the case may be. David, God bless you, brother, because like I said, there are a lot of folks out there who aren't going to read the Bible, probably won't never crack open anything that Sharon or I write. And so creative video production and the ability to tell a story with a compelling script, but also with the compelling visual is a gift. And just really grateful to see, glad to see that you're putting it to work for the kingdom.
Oh, well, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And the same to you guys. You're doing a wonderful work there. And I pray for you, and I thank God for you.
David Heavener, his website, davidheavener.tv, also lastevangelist.com, and I'll also put a link in the notes to the Indiegogo page. Funding, if you feel led to help support the creation of video content, compelling, entertaining, and yet revealing truth. Coming up, where you can join Sharon and me outside the United States, and how you can help us without spending a dime. That's straight ahead as A View from the Bunker continues.
I intend to share undisclosed facts that are stranger and scarier than most people can comprehend, and it is going to shake the public to the bone. And yes, this involves a cover-up of the highest order by national space agencies, including NASA.
The asteroid is 100% certain to strike Earth, according to one space expert who says this is a matter of life and death.
You'd probably have millions of casualties. Is a planet-killing asteroid a possibility? NASA has determined that the threat is real.
And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. And it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And many men died of the waters.
Chief technology experts and working scientists agree with me. But what's more concerning is that this was prophesied in the Bible for the end times.
The Wormwood Prophecy by Thomas Horn. Available now as part of a special offer from SkyWatchTV. Call 844-750-4985 or log on to skywatchtvstore.com. Wormwood is here.
Unveiling the ancient realms of demonic kings and Satan's battle plan for Armageddon. Skywatch TV is proud to announce 2 new special offers. The Veneration Collection with optional Red Wing Saga series. Sold separately, this exclusive offer retails for $90. Yours now for only $35 plus shipping and handling. But wait, now you have the option to upgrade and expand your collection by including all 5 previously released books in the Red Wing Saga. The expanded collection, which includes all 8 books and the Search for the Rephaim DVD documentary, holds a retail value of $190. Yours now for your donation of only $100 plus shipping and handling. So don't delay. Order the Veneration Collection with optional Red Wing Saga series now. Available at SkyWatchTVstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985.
Shall we begin?
Let's begin now.
Driving the internet to think. This is A View from the Bunker every Sunday night. Coming to you from the heart of the beautiful Missouri Ozarks. I am Derek Gilbert. Next Sunday night, we explain why the numbers don't add up when it comes to history. Archaeology and the Bible are actually more in sync than what we've been taught in school. That's next Sunday night as we bring in Joe Taylor, director and curator of the Mount Blanco Fossil Museum. And looking forward to that conversation because there are some things that archaeologists, that paleontologists know that they just aren't telling us. For example, blood vessels inside T-Rex bones? Yeah. Not supposed to happen, but they're there. That's next Sunday night, which is December 1st, 2019, here on A View from the Bunker, online at VFTB.net, Spreaker.com, and all sorts of other places. Of course, the easiest way to get the program is with our free mobile app. It's available for Android and iOS devices, and we've got links to both of those app stores at VFTB.net. Look in the left-hand menu bar there, and you'll find... No, it's on the right-hand side. You'll find it near the top of the page at VFTB.net. Just follow the link, download it. It is free, and every time we update the podcast, you'll get the download on your smartphone or tablet. You'll find us on Twitter at ViewFromBunker or on Facebook at View from the Bunker. That's the page where you can discuss the issues we raise here. We're also on Parler, that's Parler. It's like French. Parler, Savior Connect, one way. You'll find me there under my name, Derek P. Gilbert. And, of course, on Twitter, also at Derek Gilbert. Left out the P. So, anyway, that's where you'll find me there. Just a quick comment as Sharon and I today were watching The Prisoner, the classic television program with Patrick McGowan on streaming video. Don't know why we felt led to watch it. I stumbled across it on a streaming service the other night and decided this afternoon to start watching the first program again. This is from back in the mid-'60s, and it is as fresh and relevant today as it was 50 years ago when Patrick McGoohan brought the show to television. In fact, we got so interested in it today, we were actually looking up the resort in Wales where the series was shot, Port Merion, just to see if it might be something we can work into a future tour of the UK. Don't know about that. It's a little pricey, but then again, it's a really unique place. McGoohan's vision for The Prisoner was to depict in a very kind of claustrophobic setting the transition of the United Kingdom into a fascist state. And really what he did with The Village was create a really creepy kind of panopticon. And that's a type of prison that was... Sorry, I didn't put the phone on Do Not Disturb, so we're getting texts while recording here. The panopticon was a type of prison that was invented by a philosopher and kind of a polymath by the name of... of course, now I'm going to forget his name. Jeremy Bentham. That's it, Jeremy Bentham in the 18th century. The idea was that prisoners would be observable by their jailers at all times, but they wouldn't know when they were being observed. So they could be watched anytime or all the time, but they would never know when they were under observation. And the theory then was that you could watch more people with fewer manpower because prisoners who were afraid that they were being observed would self-correct. They would essentially become their own jailer. And that was one of the themes of The Prisoner. Now, they remade the series a few years ago, AMC, with Jim Caviezel and I'm forgetting the name of the other fellow. He played Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings movies. Anyway, interesting retake on it. We're going to have to watch that again. It was a little different spin on the series, but the point is this. The internet has essentially made Jeremy Bentham's vision of constant surveillance a reality. We never know when we're being watched or by whom, but we know that we could be watched at all times. And look, as Christians, we should be kind of operating under that concept anyway. We know that God is everywhere, sees all things, and so we should be correcting our behavior as we go anyway, because we know that we represent the creator of the universe. We are his moral agents on earth, his imagers, his image bearers, and yet many of us don't do that, self included. But the internet has made it a tool that will no doubt be used by a future one world globalist government. And it's becoming more and more apparent that this is how it's being used. In this day and age where cameras are in every smartphone, every tablet, and we've got CCTV cameras pointed at the sidewalks and streets in every major city in the Western world, we could be under surveillance at all times, at any time or at all times. It hasn't reached the point of being as intrusive as it was during, as it was depicted in The Prisoner, but we're headed in that direction. And sadly, we're being complicit in creating this virtual panopticon by opting into all of these devices with cameras. As I sit here speaking to you right now, I can see within line of sight 4 internet-connected devices with webcams attached. So I'm guilty of being part of this as well. I'm not paranoid about it, but I should probably be more careful than I am. I think case in point was the news that was released this past week that Facebook's app on the iOS devices, iPhones, iPads, iPod Touch, was activating users' phones or activating users' cameras without their knowledge. They said it was a glitch that was fixed quickly, and they didn't save any of the information, to which we say, yeah, right. Facebook has had a number of those glitches in the last couple of years, so why believe them now? Anyway, just a reminder, just be careful with what you're doing on the internet, and especially if you've got children, grandchildren who have internet-connected devices, be really careful about what they're using. We're living in an age where trafficking children for sex has become the world's largest industry. That's no exaggeration. It has become the world's largest industry. And one way children are lured into that lifestyle is by groomers who troll sites and online games where children congregate. Be aware. Well, some of the events that we'll be taking part in 2020, I want to make you aware of a special offer from Hear the Watchman. They had offered a super early bird discount. That expired on November 15th. However, they've now made available to us a special promo code. So if you're interested in seeing attending the Hear the Watchman conference, this is coming to Dallas, the Hilton DFW Lakes Conference Center. That's Grapevine, Texas, near the airport there. March 6th through 8th. We'll be there with L.A. Marzulli, Paul McGuire, Pastor Paul Begley, Dr. Michael Lake, Coach Dave Daubenmeier. More speakers to be announced. Right now, the regular going rate is $99, but if you use the promo code Gilbert20, that's Gilbert20, you get in for $79. So $20 off with the promo code Gilbert20 at hearthewatchman.com. Scotland. We are coming to Scotland in late April of 2020. We'll be at Walker Hall in Troon, that's in Ayrshire near Glasgow, for the Scottish Bible Prophecy Conference from April 24th through 26th. We'll be there with Pastor Billy Crone and Jim Barfield, director of the Copper Scroll Project. Also, evangelist Stephen Wright coming over from Ireland. 3 days, cost is £54, £54.50 for 3 days. Single day tickets, £29.50. For more information and to reserve your place, log on to scottishbibleprophecyconference.brushfire.com. That's scottishbibleprophecyconference.brushfire.com. We'll be in San Antonio in June for the Battle Ready Conference. Information on that at battlereadyconference.org. The True Legends Conference in Branson, July 10th through 12th. I'll be one of the speakers for this year's conference. The theme is Ancient Cataclysms and Coming Catastrophes. That should be fascinating. Steve Quayle, L.A. Marzulli, Dr. Michael Lake, Russ Dizdar, Carl Teichribb, Gary Wayne, Darren Geisinger, and more. And yours truly as one of the speakers. And we got Sharon and I are working on a couple of projects right now that will hopefully be out by next July. That should make that presentation very, very interesting indeed. For more information, gen6.com, GENSIX.com. Tickets are on sale now for that one. SkyWatch TV's Defender Conference in August 27th through 30th. That is sold out. We're looking forward to that one. For more information, defenderconference.com. Glacier Prophecy Summit. This is a cruise, the inside route from Seattle to Alaska. I forget the destination point, but anyway, L.A. Marzulli, Gary Stearman from Prophecy Watchers, Pastor Billy Crone will be with us on this. Bob Arlick, Jeff Kinley, Dr. Larry Ollison. This is September 6th through 13th. Both Sharon and I will be speaking during the cruise. For more information and to join us, log on to glacierprophecysummit.com, glacierprophecysummit.com. And the next October, the SkyWatch TV Tour of Israel. We'll be going back to some of the megalithic sites that we've seen. Gilgal Rephaim, and another site very close to Gilgal Rephaim that we find extremely interesting, so much so that we are working on a special project about this other site. The dates, October 12th through 25th of 2020. There's an optional 4-day extension to Sardinia where we'll see the mysterious ziggurat at Monte Dakota, the tombs of the giants, and other sites that, dolmens that look very much like the dolmens in Israel and Jordan. And we don't think that's a coincidence. That'll be from October 25th through 29th. If you prefer to go to Sardinia and see the mysterious stone ziggurat, the dolmens, tombs of the giants, and other sites as a standalone tour, we'll be there from October 29th through November 5th, an optional 8-day tour of Sardinia. For more information and to register for the Israel Tour, Israel plus Sardinia, or Sardinia alone, log on to lipkintours.com. And we hope we can see you somewhere next year, whether it's inside the United States or outside the country. Meanwhile, we will continue bringing these programs every Sunday night from right here, our command bunker in the heart of the Missouri Ozarks. Leave us a review if you would at Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever else you find us, which is, of course, wherever fine podcasts are sold. Cost you nothing, and it helps us show up higher in search results so we can get the message outside the choir. In fact, you can do the same if you purchased one of our books from SkyWatchTV. If you've got an Amazon.com account, if you would, just take a few minutes and leave us a review at Amazon. It's not about selling books, it's about getting the message outside those who are already in the choir. So, appreciate that very much. You can also give us a like, our Facebook page, facebook.com/View from the Bunker. And remember, A View from the Bunker is a production of Gilbert House, released under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Our opening theme is Iron Bacon by Kevin MacLeod. His website is www.incompetech.com. Our opening announcer, D.C. Good. Next Sunday night, December 1st, 2019, we talk about paleontology and why the numbers just don't add up with the official story. Joe Taylor, curator and director of the Mount Blanco Fossil Museum, joins us here on A View from the Bunker. So we wrestle not against flesh and blood. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is A View from the Bunker.